Hello everyone, how are we all doing? When triggered, it can feel like you're going to be locked in that state forever. It can feel that all the progress that you've ever made is out the window, that's irrelevant, it doesn't matter, that it didn't exist, that you were just kidding yourself, that you were fooling yourself, that you were a fraud, that you never got any better. That's how it can feel. And that's how convincing it feels. I remember many times on my journey where I'll be doing really well. Let's say I was going sort of weeks without big triggers. I was making real good progress. And then when that trigger would hit, when OCD would latch within seconds, it felt like any progress, the whole journey, any tool that I've ever learned, anything, how I've got better, was all a waste of time. It just didn't exist because this trigger right now felt so real. It felt different. It felt different to the previous one. It felt like, no, this one requires urgent attention. This one requires that compulsion for relief. This one requires me to escape that feeling and get rid of it. This one feels different, and that's how it's going to feel. So it's important to remember that when you are triggered, it's going to feel like you're going to be locked in that internal state forever, like there's no way of getting out. Like this trigger, like this feeling, like this relapse, like this setback, like this uncomfortable feeling, like going to be stuck like that forever. That is how it's going to feel. Very, very intense, to a point where, you can even try and remember the times you did well. Nope, this is how I feel right now, because the feelings feel very overwhelming, because it feels very intense. It knocks you off your feet because you can just be walking along, you can just be doing anything, you can be out in public, walking down the street, you could be on a date with your partner, you could be at a football match, you could be at a music concert, you could be doing anything, you could be at work building a business, doing a practical job on the construction site, and all of a sudden, boom, you get hit with a trigger. OCD has latches, it takes it up a notch, and you feel like I'm going to be stuck in that internal locked in state, that you're going to be haunted forever and you're never going to get out of it. That's how it's going to feel. Okay, so it's important when that happens to not then give in to the compulsion, to not then look for a quick relief. This is where Claire Weeks' second book on our reading list, Self-Help for Your Nerves, is very, very good for letting time pass, floating, not trying to get rid, not trying to look for that escape all the time, because I fell for that trap. As soon as things were going well, it was easy to not do a compulsion. Well, relatively easy. It was easy just to coast and to keep putting in the work. But when things got difficult, when times got tough, that was the most challenging time, when I was triggered, when OCD took it up a notch, when OCD ramped up, usually around stressful events as well, usually around maybe times of holidays, maybe important days at work. For example, if you've got a big meeting with bosses, if you've got a job interview for a promotion, if you've got a job interview for a new job altogether, if you're studying for an exam, usually around exam times it can ramp up. It can feel like, oh no, I'm going to be triggered. How I feel today, no, I'm going to be feeling like that for the rest of my life. What's the point of even passing this exam? What's the point of even having this job promotion? What's the point of going for this in the career? Because it's not going to matter anyway, because I'm going to be stuck with this feeling forever. And that's how it's going to feel. Okay, so it's very important to remember that. Now try and take a step back. Try and see when you are triggered. Try and view the long journey. Try and view, okay, yes, I feel like shit today, but if I get through this, where am I going to be in 6 months, a year? Not compulsively chasing that long-term goal, but it's important to remember that you can't just base everything on how you feel today. So just because you're triggered today, just because you're having a very bad day today, or a very tough, anxious day today, that's not an indication of how you're going to feel the rest of your life, although it does feel that way. It really, really does. Okay? Because when I was at my worst, I felt like I was just had that ticking time bomb. It felt like my brain was moments away from just exploding at any time. It felt like I just wouldn't be able to cope for any second longer. And this is why we say it's important to take it a minute at a time, an hour at a time, a day at a time, just getting through each individual task, just trying to get through the day. Because at the worst, it can be very difficult just to get through the day. It can be very difficult just to think about, okay, what am I going to do this evening? What am I going to do in the next hour? Because it feels so overwhelming. It can feel very intense. It can also suddenly feel very, very real. It can all feel very, very convincing. It can suddenly feel like your worst case is true and that you have to get relief, that you can't sit with this, that you can't cope with this. You've got to look for a quick escape. That's how it feels. Okay, so it's very important. Now, as you go further along the journey, I'm pretty sure many people in the WhatsApp groups are realizing now, as they've been in a couple of months or years or however long you've been in, you become very wise, you become very aware of how OCD operates. You gain knowledge and you see how it operates, and you see, yes, I can see what it's doing now. But it's very important to then not do the things that ain't going to help. So the compulsions, the unhealthy addictive behaviors, the looking for that quick escape, because it's easier said than done. Talk is cheap. We can all know how to recover. We can all know how to learn a language, for example. We can all know how to play an instrument, but actually doing it, the application, the persistence, the consistency, the patience, the hard work that it takes is a lot harder than actually just saying it, because talk is very, very cheap. And action and putting it into action, implementing the tools to actually get better and stay better is obviously a lot more difficult. So, we could all promise that, we could all say, oh yes, when I'm triggered, I won't do this. But actually, when you're triggered, that is when you're tested. When your back's against the wall, that is when the OCD is going to really, really test you, okay? And that is the moment you've got to resist any kind of compulsion, any kind of quick addictive behavior, anything you're doing for relief. That is the moment. We could all walk along and say, yeah, everything's fine, everything's rosy. No, OCD, at times I thought I didn't have OCD at times. My good days were often followed, so when I had a bad day, my good days then happened, usually. So I'd almost outcry OCD. That's what it felt like. I outcried OCD. I felt like I got so much reassurance that I had relief, that I had long-term relief, and that was it. No, because OCD would then, yes, a day feeling okay, feeling relatively calm, relatively relaxed. But then OCD would move the goalpost, it'd find something else, or it would just latch to what I just carried about and then make it feel even more real. It would then tackle the real event, false memory, the theme from a different angle, something that I haven't dealt with before, and thought, fuck, here we go again. And that's how it's going to feel. Okay, so it's very, very important to remember that when you are triggered, just view it as, okay, it's just a bump in the road. It's just a little bump in the road. You're falling off your bike. Not even you're falling off your bike, because falling off your bike would be doing the compulsions again, would be going back and slipping back into the old way of unhealthy thinking, black and white irrational thinking. That is falling off your bike. A trigger isn't falling off your bike. A trigger is an opportunity for you to see, what am I scared of? Okay, why does that trigger me? What am I anxious about? Why does that make me feel guilty? Why does that send me into a panic attack? Why does that ramp up the anxiety? So OCD is showing you there what you're scared of, what requires work, what requires belief work, and it's very important to back up the belief work with not doing the compulsion as well. So for example, if you're saying that, oh yes, I could stand the worst case scenario, I can see the worst case scenario is not as bad as I perceive, yes, I could adapt to that, I could be flexible, I could transform my life, I could be grateful for this, I could still have this good outcome, I could learn from this, and you're breaking down the shoulds, the musts, the catastrophizing, the demands, all the things we talk about in the Albert Ellis books, the rational thinking, unconditional acceptance. So you can apply those beliefs. But then if you're not backing up with the behavior, if you're then avoiding this, or still seeking reassurance, or still Googling, or still confessing, you're not backing up the belief with the behavior. Because remember, behaviors instill beliefs. If you're avoiding, then you're not saying you can stand it. You can write down that you can stand the worst case scenario, that you can stand anxiety, but then you're avoiding triggers. That's not backing it up, because you're doing the opposite with your actions. Okay, so you've got to act against the irrational belief as well. This is why Albert Ellis talks about think, act, and feel, because they all coincide, they all link, they all intertwine. You can't just break down the beliefs on paper and then avoid the whole life. You can't say, and it wouldn't be the worst thing ever, that I could stand it, and then anytime you get a trigger, you're running around looking for that quick fix, you're running around compulsively messaging, sending huge messages, because then obviously you're showing your brain that you can't stand it. You're showing your brain that you have to look for a quick fix. Okay, so very important to remember that. But the point of this video is that when you are triggered, Just see it as an opportunity, a chance to change beliefs. Okay, not compulsively in the moment. Yes, you can dispute in your head, but that's got to be very balanced as well. Because if you do, because that can be very subtle reassurance. You know, I used to do that a lot, the internal dialogue, and then before I know it, I was reassuring myself. So yes, as we get further along the journey, that's fine. Breaking down the irrational beliefs in our head, going towards worst case scenario, look at the musts, look at what I'm catastrophizing here. What am I saying? I can't stand it. How am I not having compassion? How am I not having acceptance? Yes, that's good, but you don't have to do that all the time. Okay, if you get a big trigger, let's say when you're out in public, that's fine, you can run through that. But then if you don't feel any different, then leave it. Okay, don't do it for a quick change of feeling, for a sudden change of how you're feeling. That's not going to work. Okay, but if it stays latched, then go, what's the core fear? Write the core fear down. What's the irrational belief? How do I falsify the irrational belief? Can I prove that belief is true? Well, no, I can't because of this. Can I falsify it? Well, yes, because scientifically I can't prove it. Rationally, I can't prove that I must not do this, or I must not have done that. Rationally, I can't prove that I can't stand it. Rationally, I can prove that yes, you know, it wouldn't be ideal. It'd be very inconvenient. It'd be very unfortunate. It'd be very unpleasurable. Certainly, I don't desire that outcome. But even if that did happen, going towards discomfort, making peace of the worst case scenario, all what you're going to learn on the reading list. Hence why our reading list is so important, especially how to stubbornly refuse to make yourself miserable by Albert Ellis. That book is a game changer. Okay? So try and view that as a chance to an opportunity to change. That really helped me with triggers, because it's easy just to feel, oh shit, I'm going to be locked in this internal state for the rest of my life. I'm going to be haunted by this trigger. I'm never going to get better. My whole life's ruined. My whole month's ruined. My whole world's ruined. What is the point? Well, that's how it's going to feel. Okay, so it's very, very important just to try and view triggers like that, just a bump in the road, how you can learn from it, how you can transform your life and push you towards recovery by this trigger. You know, some of my triggers were the best thing that ever happened to me, because especially when I was coasting, it gave me the kick up the ass, because I could see I was getting lazy. I could see I was slipping back into my old way of thinking. I could see the compulsions were gradually creeping back into my life because I was stuck on the safety. I felt good, so I thought, okay, I want to stay feeling good. But no, that you don't stay feeling good by doing compulsions, because that's like an alcoholic, for example, who's sober. They wouldn't want to stay sober by drinking alcohol again, would they? And you've got to think, we're addicted to compulsion, so we're addicted to the reassurance. We're addicted to getting that relief and that escape. So it's very important to remember that. Okay, these are very, very important points when it comes to getting triggered and how that initially feels, because I get asked this a lot, because I see people that are doing really well, they've made a lot of progress, and it feels like it's all gone out the window because of one big trigger. And that is how convincing OCD is. So it's very important to be aware of that, and remember that when you next get hit with that big oomph, that big latching trigger, when it feels like it takes you off your feet, remember that's how it's going to feel in the moment. But you've got a view, okay, where am I going to be in a week's time, a month's time, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and not just get so bogged down by that one trigger, because it can feel like how you feel today feels like how you're going to feel forever. No, that's not the case. Okay, just try and view that as, what am I scared of, and break that down. Okay, just keep pushing through regardless of how you feel. That's so, so important.